Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Everyday Adventure Podcast. I'm Steven, and I'm joined by Megan. How's it going, Megan?
I'm good. How are you?
So good. So good. We are in the middle of kind of going through some different parts of my book, Everyday Adventure, and today we're going to be talking about resist complacency, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and your book is available.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can get it Amazon, and you can follow along, read the book, as well as listen to us discuss it as we go. So
Absolutely. We're super excited. Came out February 1st, and I just found out, Megan, it's on barnesandnoble.com too.
Let's go.
If you're anti-Amazon, which I've learned there are people that are anti-Amazon,
Really?
they just don't want to give the money to the big corporation, you know?
Barnes & Noble isn't a big corporation?
Maybe not as big.
Yeah.
You know,
Lines are blurry.
barnesandnoble.com, you can do that as well. So we're excited. It's been awesome. It's been fun to hear people that are getting it talk about it. And one of the most surreal things was watching my wife, Taylor, read it. She is reading it right now, like at bedtime or like as we're going to bed and stuff. And I find myself just like glancing and watching her reactions, like knowing what chapter she's in. I'm like, oh, did she get to that part yet? How is she going to react to it? So it's been very fun. But before we jump in to the episode today, we're still in the get to know you phase with our listeners. And so like any, just good starting out relationship, we just need some of those fun facts, some of those fast facts. So we've got a few more questions we're just going to go through today. So, all right. What's one routine you secretly love?
Ooh, okay, one routine. Okay, well, I'm a planner. We know this. I'm very structured. And honestly, my favorite part of my week is Monday mornings when I get to work, I plan out my whole week. And so when I'm going to be working on things, when I'm like down to meetings and everything, and I think that's just something that it's not very secret. I think that's probably well known for people that know me.
It's okay, but I think the question is just like, one of those routines that maybe somebody wouldn't be like, oh, that's exciting. So that counts.
Okay.
That counts. That's fair.
I thought you were telling me that, like,
no,
get a better one.
You're wrong.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay.
No, you're right. You're absolutely, that was a
Thank
good
you.
answer. Good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What about you?
Again, I think it's the same thing, and that's why I had to give the disclaimer, because I don't think it's very secret, but it's my heats.
Oh my gosh.
Sauna, steam room, hot tub, at the gym. There's times that I've just gone to the gym for them, especially in the dead of winter. So that would be the routine that I secretly love. Right.
You're telling people you're going to the gym 5 days a week, but you're not telling people what you're doing at the gym, right?
No, yeah. They don't need to know that. All right. What book are you currently reading or listening to?
Book I'm currently reading is called The God Walk.
Okay.
So I'm still making my way through that one, and that is about like pace of life. It talks a lot about one, like the history of walking, the pilgrimage of walking, which I'm not totally here for that part of it.
I love the history of walking.
Right. I mean, history of walking, fascinating. But what it has shown us is like how our culture has sped up through life just naturally with advancements and everything like that. And so it's just talking about like how we were originally designed to walk through life, to just go slow, be patient, to get to the next season. And so it's been really good.
That's cool. I'm reading Made for People by Justin Whitmel Early, which has been really good. And then I'm also listening to a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport, who wrote like Deep Work and Slow Productivity. And I've just always loved his writing. And this is one of his earlier writings on how like our work, what makes us love our work. Is it something that we're passionate about, or is it something that we're really good at? And that's where the love comes from. And so it's been a really cool book that I'll probably talk about more on the podcast as we go. All right, last one for the day. Nope, two more. What's your go-to Dairy Queen Blizzard flavor?
Mint Oreo Blizzard. Never tried anything else. But I stand by it. I think it's great.
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, okay, so that one was mine for like maybe 10 years. But then I branched out, and I've just been into Butterfinger Blizzards. I don't like eating a Butterfinger just by itself. I think
the name alone doesn't sound very appealing.
It's just the sticky teeth. It's just how sticky your teeth get. But the Butterfinger the effect isn't as severe. So that's that. And then our last question, what's your go-to comfort show?
Go-to comfort show? Friends is always kind of just a classic, but also New Girl. If I just
Okay.
like have something mindless on the background, probably that.
Hey, those are great comfort shows.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine is Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, good choice.
Yep. Just if I wanted just a good laugh, um, that's the show I go to. And what's fun is today we're going to be talking about complacency and comfort zones, and so even just that question has made me realize like comfort is in itself not a bad thing. You know, comfort is not a bad thing. It's just oftentimes how often we go to it and when we go to it and how on our autopilot setting, that's just where we return to. So I'm excited to just kind of talk about this whole topic holistically today. I'm pumped.
Yeah. Yeah, that is actually a really good point, just bringing up the difference between comfort and complacency, like comfort zone versus where you're going to just kind of like check out of life. But give us an overview. Resist complacency. What does that mean? Give us an overview of that.
Yeah, I think again when I try to look at things in this adventure mindset of like what does true adventure, you know, in the terms of like what our society defines it as and what we look at of like people that do epic things, what are some of the qualities? You know, we talked about pursuing intentionality, like you have to set a course and you have to go. But the next one is resisting complacency. Like you cannot conquer anything if you stay in the same place. You cannot take new ground. Like I just think of, and I write about just different things that have happened through history of whether that's going to the moon or, you know, exploring the ocean or even going out from St. Louis, Lewis and Clark on the expedition to see what was in the West and see if there was a waterway that connected to the Pacific. Like all these different things, like it started with somebody saying like, there has to be more and I'm going to push through. So in our everyday life, like complacency is really what robs us of potential and it robs us of the forward progress that God has for us in our spiritual lives, in our relationships, in our emotional lives. And so really the idea of resisting complacency is coming up against that natural pull towards just like settling in and normal becoming you know, because I think there's a difference between mundane and complacent. Like mundane is like these things that happen repetitively every day that we can't avoid. Complacency is saying like, I'm going to stay in the same place. It's the things that I can avoid. So the three kind of chapters, we're not going to necessarily go through them today. That's why you have to read the book. But it is the first one is cultivating curiosity, becoming a lifelong learner, just like the key of teachability and continuing to learn and grow, and then ditching your comfort zone. So just what does it mean to every day do things that pull you beyond that comfortable spot as like a training mechanism to like grow myself so I can say yes to the right things and say no to the wrong things. So that's a little bit of an overview.
Yeah.
The flyover.
Yeah, that's good. It reminds me, I think we've talked about this verse already on the podcast so far, but John 10:10, like God came to give us, or Jesus came to give us life and life abundant, life to the fullest. And I think sometimes it's so easy to stop at, he came to give us life. And like, this is the life and this is it. And we just kind of go through and live our life.
Yeah.
But there is a second half to that verse, that there is life abundant, life to the fullest. And I think like when you engage with your life, that's when you hit that. When you get to that point. Like, so before we kind of get further in, but what does life to the fullest mean to you in that sense? Like, how is that different?
Well, I think you explained it really well in just the sense that, well, for instance, I write about it in the book, but, you know, Castaway, he is shipwrecked on this, or plane wrecked, I suppose, on this island. And the whole story, the first half of it has no music and no narrative. It's just silence. And it's a very fascinating movie, but the heart of it is there's these scenes where he is contemplating, do I just give up? Like he stands at the top of that cliff and it's just like, do I just not even try anymore? And I think so many of us, when it comes to our life, like we don't maybe stand at that cliff like that in that literal sense, but we have made a conscious decision to just like settle for whatever this is, you know, like whatever I'm at right now. Like I'm in a, you know, somebody might be saying like my marriage is kind of lacking what it used to have, but I'm not fighting anymore. And, you know, my kids are estranged, you know, as they're older, but I'm I'm just going to hold bitterness and anger towards them and wait for them to come back to me. And like, there's just these different attitudes we can have towards our work of just like, work, I'm just going to kind of settle. I'm just going to go through the motions, get my paycheck and get out of there. And I just have to question myself and question people of just like, do you think that that's the best God has for you? Do you think that's the abundance that God has for you? So many people, when it comes to complacency, it's relational complacency. And so I'm good with the 2 or 3 people that I know from high school or that I've met in college. And there's people around us that need friendship. There's people around us that need Jesus. And are we willing to share it with them? And so I think that's kind of what's at the core of this. And the abundant life side of it is like just a simple question of, do you think that your life right now, the way that you're living, the way that you approach each day is making it available to what God truly has for you in every moment? And for me, the answer for that is just overwhelmingly no, in so many days and so many seasons, which is the invitation. So it's not a condemnation. It's an invitation to say like, man, I want to step into what God has for me today.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of answers the next question, but why is resisting complacency so core to the idea of everyday adventure specifically? And I think you kind of spoke to it of it is choosing to go on the adventure, choosing to see every day as an adventure rather than just like, oh, this is just what I do.
Yeah.
This is what I do. But is there anything you would want to add to that idea of like, why is learning to resist complacency going to help you live every day as an adventure?
Yeah, I mean, I think Craig Rochelle says it, others have said it similarly, but basically you cannot fulfill your calling from within your comfort zone. Like you cannot do, and I'm not even talking great things, because I think sometimes we can confuse like, or we can define great things as planting a church that is the largest in the nation, like Craig Rochelle, or, we can kind of almost pin it to something that isn't ours to take. Whereas the true definition of calling isn't necessarily involving anybody else or greatness from the world standards. It's just like alignment with God's best for your life, and just being in line with, these are the gifts that He's given me. This is the purpose that He's given me. And am I using it to glorify Him? Am I using it to serve others? And so when it comes to this idea of complacency, it's really a blockage of that potential and that those giftings and those skill sets and those things from being used for the greatest purpose, not only for ourselves or our family, but for God, His kingdom, and the people that He's called us to serve. So I think that's a big part of what's attached to the idea of everyday adventure is this is almost where it goes from just being reflective, and intentionality is so much of like, what am I noticing and am I paying attention to? Now, am I willing to turn my attention towards God and towards people, which is obviously what Jesus says is like, this is the greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so this is kind of the invitation to me where it turns from, all right, I need to become more aware that I'm only given today. I have this one opportunity. Now, what am I going to do with it? And am I willing to go beyond just that natural pull towards comfort, towards ease, towards, we build bigger houses with more garage stalls and more bedrooms, but we don't have more people. And then we don't host more. We build fences to keep people out instead of opportunities to bring people in. So I think it's just the natural pull of where we live, at least, is to kind of make our world smaller. And I think God has more for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really good.
What do you think, though? Like, how do you see this in your own life? Like, and from your vantage point and from your seat on the couch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I feel like it's so easy to get into the routine of life of just like, I think that like you can end up living the same day over and over and over again, like the movie Groundhog's Day. It's just like It becomes monotonous. Like we talk about the mundane, but I think complacency is when we lose sight that this is the only life that we're given. And I think that not seeing that for the opportunity that it is, and instead seeing it as oh, this is just how it is like, I think just a waste of what God could use your life to do. And so I think, but I like the word resist. I think that it is something that it comes very natural to be complacent. It comes very natural to get caught in habits and in
Yeah.
routine. And I think that, like, we're creatures of habit. You fall back on your habits. You fall back on, like, just things that you've cultivated over a lifetime. And so to resist it takes tension and takes a little bit of friction and is going to require you to, like, push past your default settings. And so that's what I see the most in me, is like that in order to actually live every day as an adventure doesn't come naturally. Like,
Right.
it is something that I have to constantly be more aware of, or like think through or be intentional with, because I don't naturally, you know, take down all my fences and let people in or host people or whatever. Like, I have to look for opportunity to live it.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think what I want to do is help people understand what this does and can look like, because it's going to look different for everybody. And that's where, along with every conversation that we have, I'm trying to not blanket everything, an opportunity to look inward and to look upward and just say, like, God, in what ways can you draw me into your presence, into the good things that you have in store for me, that I would be more available to say yes to what you want me to say yes to. And so again, that's going to look different for everybody, but I think some of the things that I would kind of encourage is just going through a normal life of just like our work. There's just these key areas in our life, our work, if we're married, our marriage, or our friendships, or our family relationships, or in my case, being a parent, and just these areas of like, what does complacency look like in each of them? And then just being able to just honestly say yay or nay. You know, like if I think about my friendships, complacency is we see each other, and when we see each other, we have fun and we talk, but we don't ask each other harder questions. And I'm not saying your whole friendship is just asking hard questions, but like, do you have people that know a majority of your life and know your secrets? And like, do you have somebody that can call you out? Do you have somebody that can speak life into you when you're feeling discouraged, or do you just kind of harbor all of that? And so complacency is shallow relationships. Complacency is, not being intentional to say like, hey, let's build a rhythm where we see each other regularly. So when we do see each other, it doesn't feel like this big long catch up. It's just like, we just continue to build. Complacency in a marriage is just going through the motions. And we're in this season where 7, 5, and 3, and we have a lot of activities. And there's times where Taylor goes one direction, I go the other direction. So this idea of passing ships, that's kind of like the natural flow of like our physical sense in some evenings. Not every evening, we really guard it, but we don't want to pass ships emotionally. So like making sure that we continue to touch base. So complacency is you put the kids to bed and you both go sit on your phones and watch a movie. In the last episode, Jordan Smucker talked about how like they have a rule in their house where it's one screen at a time. So you cannot watch a show and be on your phone, or whatever the case is. And so I think it's just some of those things. So what about a couple other areas like work or family relationships? Like, what do you think complacency looks like in those areas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, complacency in a work setting, I think, looks like doing the bare minimum, I think, and that also comes from me that like strives to do everything, but I think that like you can go through the motions. It's not talking to coworkers, it's just like going to your office, sitting at your desk, doing your job and clocking out. But I think that there's a lot more potential there than maybe we give credit to, talking to coworkers, actually having those conversations, breaking for lunch, and being intentional with that. I think there's also a way to, work is worship to God. And so if you can figure out a way to, not go above and beyond on everything, but figure out ways that you can glorify the Lord through that and what you're doing in a work setting. Or it's like, I think in the same way, I think work and home kind of play hand in hand. Like, it's allowing your work attitude to affect who you are at home too. And so not being able to shut it off, or being able, or not or continuing to work at home or things like that, and allowing those to be so melded together,
Yeah.
meshed together. And then what was the other one you asked? You said work and family.
Yeah.
Family. Family complacency, I think. I mean, for me, like my family doesn't live in town. So complacency for me is like not being intentional about going to visit home and kind of like the idea of out of sight, out of mind, which has happened before,
Yeah.
and I think is a lot more common than we maybe care to admit, that like, oh, we're not necessarily intentional about visiting parents or other siblings. And so, or it's when you are at home, you're all sitting on a screen and it's not the intentional time, and you guys just like fall into patterns. My sister and I have been talking about that a ton recently, of like when we're hanging out, like let's not be on our phones. I never get to see you. Like if we're together, we're doing something, we're talking, like we're going deeper. We're not just sitting in the same room. And so
Right.
those couple ideas for me come to mind.
That's so good. I think, again, the invitation is to really think through those different areas of our life. Because, again, the first step is always going to be honesty. The first step is always going to be determining your you are here point of like, where am I at? And so before you maybe go forward, we have to stop and just ask ourselves, in what areas am I complacent? Is there stagnation? And it's just like a river, when a river is flowing, things keep moving, things keep growing, but then there's the pools, that things just stop growing. And when the water settles, like you don't want to swim in that. It's green, it's gross, it's not great. And so I think there's just those areas in our life that are continuing to move. So our physical bodies, our finances, like complacency in our finances is we just have unchecked spending habits, and maybe we are more comfortable like a place of our financial life, but we don't actually take time to say like, well, what is God asking me to do with my money? And so I think it's not always just like laziness. Complacency is not laziness. Complacency is really just unchecked comfort, unchecked stagnation of just like, I'm in the same place, I'm not moving, but I haven't even checked in, because there's going to be times where like, I don't want somebody to hear, oh, he's just saying, don't ever rest. Like, don't ever sit, don't ever watch a movie. Like, that is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, are the habits, rhythms of our life, when we check in on them, do we feel peace, or do we feel a tug? And I think if we're honest, if the rhythm of our life is leading us to those places over and over again, more likely there's something in us going like, there's got to be more. Like there's got to be something else. And I think it's a whole part of this everyday adventure thing is actually learning to recognize, whether we want to call it the voice of God or just like our conscience, like trying to communicate to us like that there's more, So I would say that. And I think what this really leads to, is disengagement, dullness, missed growth, and connection. So I think if those three things are present in our life, we just need to be aware. Like if I feel disengaged, so I feel disengaged in my marriage, I feel disengaged at work, I'm just there, I'm just a body existing, that's something to pay attention to. If it all feels dull, if it just feels like there's no life, there's no meaning, there's really no purpose, and that's not, maybe you don't feel depressed, but you just like, in this segment of my life, I'm okay with this. Or just misconnection. Like I have been in work settings, and it actually sparked something that we did at the church of our Monday lunches, because I just was like, I work with these people and we're all so busy and doing stuff that I never even see them. Like I don't know anything about them. And that just kind of was an invitation to like try to do something about that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that brings us to a good kind of turning point in the conversation of, we've talked about, that this is normal. This is maybe more normal than we realize. And so what do we do? How do we actually resist complacency? Where do we start? What are like some like pillars for us to take this conversation and make it actionable?
Yeah. I mean, again, if we read the 3 chapters in the book, we talk about, the idea of cultivating curiosity, becoming a lifelong learner, and ditching your comfort zone. Those are 3 great places to start. But even just for the sake of conversation, and we can circle back on these things later, but curiosity. Like, I just think when we stop asking questions, when we stop really leaning in, curiosity is, again, without curiosity, people don't ask, like, is there a river that connects to the Pacific Ocean? You know, what is in the ocean? Is there anything worth our resources or whatever? Is the moon cheese? You know, like, it's the questions that we ask that send us to the moon. That's exactly why they went. Don't question it.
Don't question
Yeah.
it. Don't Google that.
Yeah, don't Google that. But it's these things that it's like that curiosity in a marriage of like, are there things about my spouse that I don't know? Like, not in like a prying, secretive way, but just like Taylor and I have been together for almost 11 years, and we learn things about each other every day, but we can stop learning just by stop paying attention. In our work, like, are there things that I have not learned or applied that would make me more effective at my job and more useful and more be able to add more value to the settings that I'm in? And so I think it's that curiosity piece. And for me, that comes a lot from just observing my kids, and just seeing the way that they view life. And it's really refreshing. And I get invited into that on a daily basis as a dad. And I know not everybody is in that season or setting, but for me, it's every day I get invited to these make-believe sessions. I get invited to these activities that force me into that, or I get asked questions. It's like my kids and you, Megan. I get asked questions that I've never thought of that. But you're so good at this. So like, how does this look for you of curiosity? Like, how does that help you resist complacency?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, curiosity maybe just came a little bit more naturally. I'm just like constantly asking questions, and I don't know. I think I enjoy figuring out why something works the way that it does, or why it doesn't. But I think that honestly, I was thinking about your kids too. Like the other day, I was babysitting them. You guys were on a date night, and we played King of the Hill of your couch cushions.
Yeah.
And I remember just pausing while we were playing, and I was like, this is like cultivating something in me right now to like have more fun in life.
Yeah.
Like, these originally just started as couch cushions. Now it's a throne,
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, life is way more fun than I give it credit for sometimes. And so just being curious to see something a different way, I think it's also helped me more in my relationships to, instead of jumping to a conclusion, I'm more curious to ask a question or to figure out like, okay, why was this handled this way, or why are you feeling this way? And I think it's deepened my relationships. It's allowed me to hold less bitterness in my life, to feel more free too, and light and free. And yeah, just being more curious than, I don't know, quick to judge maybe.
There's things that come into your mind that don't make sense, and you're willing to ask. And I think sometimes it's a pride thing. Like, I just look at my own self. I'm like, I don't want to ask because I don't want to sound silly, or I have this position, or I've been doing this long enough that I should know that. And I think the more curiosity, the more it leads me into growing, and it leads me into new opportunities. And so I think, I just think finding ways to model that. And for our challenge, we're going to come back to it in just a few minutes, will be around just the questions we ask. One of the things that I write about in the book are the whys that make us wise, like the WHY that makes us WISE. So it was hard.
Yeah.
But just like the whys that make us wise are the questions that we ask, maybe when we feel like I'm not supposed to ask that question. There's a scene in The Office that I just love, and it's Jim, and I don't remember the boss's name, but the boss is wanting him to do like a rundown or something like that, and he's like, oh, what is that? And he the whole day he's just trying to figure out what it is, but he was not willing to ask the one person that could have told him what he wanted. And so I think it's just that sometimes it's the blockage is just us not being willing to ask. And so one other thing that I just wanted to touch on really briefly, and again, these are going to be topics that recirculate throughout the podcast, and they're core to the book, so just read the book, but is just taking one step out of your comfort zone. And so again, the people that end up at the top of Everest, for instance, one, they're kind of crazy. You know, it's, yeah, but they don't just start there. Like they don't just wake up one morning and they're like, I'm going to climb Everest today. You know, it takes months of training and years of previous experiences that even prepare you for something like that. And so sometimes though, it's just like, what's the one thing that I can do to move myself beyond that comfort zone? And I think comfort is very appealing. It's very applauded. You know, I remember writing part of the book and I was sitting in a coffee shop and I just looked out. It was just kind of one of those, like, I ran out of words to say, and writer's block, as they say. And I looked at a billboard and it was like a full-size truck with more space, and then it was a bed, and then it was just like a picture of a beach, and it was like your next vacation, you know, and everything was catering to what would make my life easier, what would make my life more comfortable. And I just stared at that billboard for another maybe 30 seconds because it was just a rotational billboard, and every single one of them appealed to what would make me more comfortable and make my life easier in this moment. And so I think it's one part of this is actually being conscious that that is the tug. That is always going to be the pull. So again, it's not never going on vacation. It's not buying a bed that you like to sleep in. It's the reality that I will do this in every area of my life until I have no purpose left. You know, like, I think that's the enemy's greatest tactic, to make us think that, well, my neighbors don't need me to build relationship that can ultimately potentially lead to the gospel. Like my marriage is good enough. Like my kids, you know, yeah, they're just kids, so I don't need to disciple them. They'll figure it out as they get older. I found out when I was 18, you know. So I just think it's those things will always be the pull. And so it's recognizing that and then finding one way each day to put myself beyond that. And those can be really little things. But what are some ways that somebody can ditch their comfort zone today?
Yeah, I mean, one is like initiate a conversation. I think a lot of times we spend a lot of life waiting for something else to happen to us or someone else to start. But start a conversation with a coworker, with a spouse, with a family member. Don't be afraid of rejection with it either.
Yeah.
You know, I think everyone longs for a relationship and community too. And then another one is like, say yes before you're ready. Say yes before it makes sense and before you see all the pieces in place. A lot of times we don't ever get to see the whole picture. You know, like hindsight's 2020, you know. But if you never walk through that first door, you can't walk through the 10th that leads to something crazy and something cool. So say yes before you're ready. Any other ones you want to add to that?
Yeah, I feel like just trying something new, you know, like I think it's a great way to do something is, and I've learned this in my own life, is that I avoid things that I don't think I can be good at right away. And so sometimes what pulls me out of my comfort zone is doing something either that I'm not good at or doing something that I don't like. And so for me, that started with what I called the I Hate Running Club, was just me running 1 mile for the first week, 2 for the second. And, you know, what's crazy is that I've ran at least a mile for like the last 32 weeks. And I hadn't ran more than 4 miles in 5 years, like probably closer to 10 years. Like I hadn't literally ran 4 miles, like maybe cumulatively, like running to catch up to somebody, you know, but like going on a run. And even though I still don't like it, I don't at all like running. It just forces me. Every time I run, I feel great about it. Not I feel great doing it, but I feel great about it because I'm doing something. It's a vote for the person I want to become. And it's not a runner. It's somebody that does things that they don't like to do when they feel like they're supposed to. So, I just think it's finding those little things each week to do that. And what I'm super excited about is next week, the conversation is with Paul Herkman, who is the executive director of Venture. And he recently ran 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, the Great World Race. He did it for girls caught in human trafficking, and they raised over $1 million. And it was for a cause. And what's fascinating is that in the conversation, I already recorded it, he talks about how he still hates running. He ran 160 miles. He runs these crazy races. He does all these things and he still hates it, but he's doing it for something that's greater. And I think that's part of this is like we say yes to difficult things and we move beyond our comfort zone, not because we like it, but because it's good for us and it's good for others. So I'm just really excited for you to hear that conversation as well. But as we kind of end today, one of the rhythms for this podcast is anticipation and celebration. This goes back to day one and it's going to continue on, is just thinking through what's something that we're anticipating and what's something we're celebrating. And so let's jump into it. You go first. What is something that you are celebrating right now?
Right now, I'm celebrating my life group. So my life group meets every week, and we have a ton of new girls that are coming, and that's just really fun.
Yeah.
I think that's fun to meet new people, and we have a lot of girls that came back from last semester, and so that's just been sweet to just get to cultivate friendship. And like there's one girl that I just like see so much of myself in her. She's a freshman in college and she's just like
that's
figuring
awesome.
it out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, we're gonna get coffee, you know, those
Yeah.
kind of things. And so I'm just celebrating those new friendships, the new rhythm, to have a community that we meet weekly to talk about the Bible and get to hang out. So yeah, I'm excited.
Love
it's
it.
fun. What are you anticipating?
I am anticipating, this is going to sound weird because I have not played video games more than once in 5 years, but what's when you guys are on your trip, I'm going to bring in my old Xbox from like 2005 and I'm just going to play it a couple times because I've been just completing the book. It was just a grind. And so I'm just excited to like do something that is just kind of fun and pointless on purpose. And so that's something I'm anticipating.
We're really excited for you.
Yeah, I'm
Play
excited
some
for
video
you. No, I've been thinking about this topic now that we're doing this with the podcast. I've been doing it more in my everyday life of like, what am I looking forward to today? And that one just came to mind when I was just like, what am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to that because of where I've been, and I'm grateful for where I've been, and it's so much fun. But now it's just like, I want a little bit of time where I'm just not doing something strategically and intentionally to move something forward. It's just like, no, I'm doing this for enjoyment. And I'm going to play like Madden 06, Donovan McNabb's on the cover. And I probably have teams that I created when I was in high school, and I'm just going to play with them because it's fun. So I'm pumped about that. But as we end today, we have a challenge. What is the challenge for this week?
The challenge is ask better questions.
This is the Ask Better Challenge, Ask Better Questions Challenge. And what we really want you to do is, as you participate in these challenges, go to Instagram. Got a broadcast channel. You can find it at Everyday Adventure or on my page, Stephen Glosser. And on that page, join that channel and actually share something that you're learning from these experiences. So the Ask Better Questions Challenge is pretty much what it sounds like. Instead of asking, how are you? It's finding a way to ask that in a better way. And so better questions lead to better conversations, which lead to better relationships. And so instead of asking, what do you do for work? Ask, what do you enjoy most about your work? Or instead of asking, how are you? Ask, what's been taking up the most space in your mind lately? Where are you from? Can become, what do you love most about where you grew up? And what did you do this weekend? What was a highlight from your weekend? And so just finding ways to ask questions that we're already asking. I ask everybody, how are you? You know, but if I were to ask them, and this isn't just like in the passing, but that person I'm sitting down with for a moment, hey, what's taking up your mind? Like, what are you most excited or most stressed about right now? And by asking those questions, it leads to better conversations and better relationships. So this is a way to kind of cultivate that curiosity, grow past our comfort zone, and build this into our life. So ask better questions, find us on Instagram, share your experience. I will post the Monday that this comes out. I will kind of share this question and give some prompts to kind of reflect on, and we'll be able to go from there. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. That's going to be good. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, today. We hope that, it met you where you're at, and that, you can relate to some of it and also be challenged by some of it. I know I'm still challenged by this topic every time we talk about it because it's so easy to be complacent and to be comfortable in life. And so we're just grateful for everyone that's listening today.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you enjoy this podcast, make sure you leave a rating and a review. Share it with somebody that you care about. We'd love to continue to grow this podcast, grow this community, and so we'd love to have you along for the journey. And remember, adventure is closer than you think. We love you. Have a great day.